It started like any other day. I was working late at Lincoln High, finishing up some grading before heading home. It's funny how quickly things can go wrong when you're alone. You think you know a place, its creaks, its shadows, its quiet. But then one night, it feels different. Like the building itself has changed while no one's looking. I teach English here, or at least I did back then. That night I stayed later than usual because there'd been rumors about budget cuts, layoffs. I wanted to make sure my lesson plans were perfect, something they couldn't argue with. But by 9 p.m. the halls were silent except for the hum of the vending machines down the hall and the occasional groan of the pipes. At first I thought it was just me hearing things. You know how it is when you're tired. Every sound becomes exaggerated. But then I heard it again. Footsteps. Slow. Deliberate. Coming from somewhere upstairs. I told myself it was probably Mr. Harper, the janitor. He always worked late, except he'd already left. I saw him pack up his cart and head out around 7:30. So who else could it be? I grabbed my phone and called the main office. No answer. Just that dead tone you get when no one's picking up. My heart started racing, but I tried to stay calm. Maybe someone had forgotten something, a book, their keys, and came back to grab it. Logical, right? But logic doesn't hold up when you hear whispers. They weren't loud enough to understand, just murmurs floating through the vents or maybe the walls themselves. And then the intercom crackled to life. At first, nothing, just static. Then, the last bell. That's what we call it, the final bell of the day. Only it shouldn't have rung, not this late, not without anyone pressing the button. And that's when I realized the door to my classroom was locked. From the outside, panic set in. I banged on the windows, screamed for help, but no one came. Of course not. It was just me in the building, or so I thought. Then I saw them, outside the window, figures moving in the darkness beyond the glass. Kids, maybe 5 or 6 of them, standing perfectly still, staring in at me. Their faces, pale, hollow. One of them raised a hand and pressed it flat against the glass. When I turned back to the door, it was open, wide open. I don't remember unlocking it. I don't even remember touching the handle. But there it was, inviting me into the hallway. I didn't want to go. God, I didn't. But staying in that room felt worse, like whatever was out there would come in if I didn't leave. So I stepped out. The air was colder in the hallways, colder than it should have been. My breath fogged in front of me, and the fluorescent lights buzzed erratically. Every step I took echoed too loudly, like the sound was being amplified. And those whispers, they were closer now, clearer. "Help us," they said, over and over again. "Help us." I ran, down the stairs, past lockers smeared with graffiti, toward the exit. But the doors wouldn't budge. None of them. They were sealed shut, like the building itself had turned against me. And that's when I saw her, standing at the end of the hall, a girl in a torn cheerleading uniform, her face streaked with dirt. She looked familiar, though I couldn't place her. Her lips moved, but no sound came out. Instead, the words appeared in my head, clear as day. "They're still inside." Before I could react, she pointed behind me. I turned, and that's when I saw them. All of them. Dozens of kids filling the hallway, spilling out of classrooms. Their eyes were blank, their movements jerky, unnatural. Some carried backpacks, others clutched textbooks. All of them stared at me with that same hollow expression. I don't know how I got out. One moment I was surrounded, and the next I was outside, gasping for air. The parking lot was empty, the streetlights flickering. When I looked back at the school, all the windows were dark, silent, like nothing had happened. The police searched the school that night, found nothing, no signs of forced entry, no evidence anyone had been there besides me. But I know what I saw, what I heard, and sometimes late at night, I swear I can still hear the whispers, calling my name.
There are places in schools no one thinks about until it's too late. The boiler room, the old storage closets, the basement. My first real job after college was IT at my old high school. The basement office was this weird little sanctuary, mini fridge, AC that actually worked, and a TV always tuned to Judge Judy reruns. That's where I was when hell came knocking. The text came at 12:37 p.m. Armed intruder reported. Full lockdown initiated. I laughed. We'd done drills every semester. Then, total darkness. Not like a power outage. Like someone wanted it dark. The air got heavier somehow. That basement smell of mildew and old textbooks, suddenly sharp with, was that gun oil? 18 minutes. That's how long I sat frozen. Every sound magnified. The drip of a leaky pipe, the creak of the building settling, then something new. He wasn't running, wasn't panicked, just exploring. Every few steps he'd stop, listening. I realized I was holding my breath. When the stairwell door creaked open, I finally smelled it. Cheap mint gum and something medicinal. His shoes made this wet squelch like he'd walked through blood upstairs. That's when my phone buzzed. Dave's text lit up the desk. Shooter in red plaid. Buckley down. He's heading. The message cut off. Right as the office doorway filled with shadow. Judge Judy, huh? My ex-wife loved the show. His hand grazed my shoulder, ice cold despite the basement heat. You tech guys know all the exits, maybe one without cameras? The way he said cameras, like he'd studied them. Shame about Mr. Buckley. He shouldn't have recognized me. When the gun clicked, I didn't think, just moved. The bullet sparked off a server rack, illuminating his face for half a second. That's what haunts me most. He was smiling. The cops found him in the parking lot. Buckley survived. Case closed, except... Funny thing, his alibi checked out for the first shooting. Security footage shows him entering after the lockdown started. That notebook they found had my class schedule, my coffee order, and a list titled Judge Judy episodes to discuss. But here's what they never explained. Why did the basement door alarm fail that morning? How did he know about the blind spot by the servers? And why? Does someone still call the office every Wednesday at 12:37 p.m., right when Judge Judy comes on?
Last period math with Mr. Thompson was usually the highlight of my day. No tests, just trivia games. My friend Jake had just guessed the Nike logo wrong when it happened. The intercom beeped abruptly, cutting to the chatter and laughter. The announcement was short and urgent. Teachers, initiate lockdown procedures immediately. It felt like all the air had been sucked out of the room. The lights went off so fast I saw spots. That's when I noticed something worse. The classroom door hadn't fully latched. There was a half-inch gap, and through it, I could hear footsteps. He wasn't running. He wasn't yelling. He was just testing doors every few seconds. Another locker punched, coming closer. Then I heard his voice for the first time. A sing-song voice, almost playful, but dripping with menace. "Ready or not," he sang, "here I come." Those words sent chills down my spine. The doorknob started to tremble slightly. Outside, dirty fingers slid under the gap, dragging something dark across the floor. It glistened faintly in the dim light. Nobody spoke. We were all frozen. Then came the knocking. Loud, direct, not on the lockers this time, on our door. Each knock made the silence between them feel heavier, more suffocating. Mr. Thompson whispered to us, his voice trembling. "Don't breathe, not a sound." He covered our mouths with his hands, but I could tell he was just as scared as we were. I could barely breathe. Through the gap, I could see those dirty fingernails scraping something sticky along the tiles. It looked like blood, or maybe something worse. Something I didn't want to understand. All I knew was that he was right there, on the other side of that thin wooden door. After that, everything became a blur. When the police arrived, They said the intruder had vanished. No clear evidence of who he was or how he got out. But the janitors found strange things in the supply closet. A half-eaten sandwich, a water bottle, and a crumpled note. The note read, "Third period was too loud, 7th period perfect." It was as if he'd been watching us the whole time, planning, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. They replaced all the doors with steel ones after that, installed security cameras everywhere, held mandatory drills. But sometimes, when the hallways are empty, the janitors still find little handprints under the doors, always at 1:55 p.m. Today, while reviewing security footage, I noticed something strange. A locker at the end of the hallway was vibrating slightly, as if someone inside was pressing against it, but there was no one there. Is he still watching us? I never believed in ghosts until I took the night shift at the campus admin office. It was supposed to be an easy gig, just answering late-night calls from panicked students who forgot their passwords or locked themselves out of the registration system. The pay was decent, and as a broke grad student drowning in loan debt, I couldn't say no. The first few nights were boring as hell, just me, stale coffee, and the endless hum of fluorescent lights. But then the weirdness started. At first, it was just little things. I'd leave a stack of forms neatly organized on a corner of my desk, only come back from the bathroom and find them scattered across the floor. I chalked it up to the ancient HVAC system until one night when I actually saw it happen. I was staring right at the papers when they suddenly slid off the desk like an invisible hand had swiped them. My coffee went ice cold in seconds, and I swear I felt something brush against the back of my neck. Just the lightest touch of freezing fingers. The photocopier was next. It would turn on by itself at exactly 2:17 a.m. every night, spitting out blank page after blank page until I unplugged the damn thing. I reported it to maintenance, but when they checked it during the day, it worked perfectly. Then came the typing. At first, it was just a few random keystrokes from one of the empty cubicles, the kind of sound you might mistake for the building settling. But then it became constant, furious typing, like someone was working on an urgent deadline. I'd walk over to check, and it would stop the moment I got within 5 feet of the desk. I started having nightmares even when I was awake. The office would get so cold my breath came out in visible puffs, but the thermostat read 72 degrees. I'd catch movement in my peripheral vision, a shadow darting between cubicles, the briefest glimpse of someone sitting at a desk before they vanished when I turned my head. One night, I stayed late to finish a project, and that's when I saw her clearly for the first time. In the darkened glass of the window, reflected behind me, was a woman in outdated business clothes. Her hollow eyes locked onto mine in the reflection, and her mouth moved like she was trying to tell me something. I spun around so fast I knocked over my chair, but of course there was no one there, just the empty office, the hum of the lights, and this overwhelming sense that I was being watched from every dark corner. That's when I decided to leave early for the night. I grabbed my bag and practically ran for the door, only to find it wouldn't open. The handle turned freely, but the door itself was stuck fast, like something was holding it shut from the other side. I pulled with all my strength, even threw my shoulder against it, but it didn't budge an inch. That's when all the computer screens in the office suddenly flashed to life at once. The blue glow turned blood red as every monitor displayed the same message in bold, pulsing letters. You shouldn't have come back. The temperature plummeted so fast I could see frost forming on the desks. Behind me, I heard the squeak of an office chair rolling across the floor, coming toward me. I didn't turn around. I didn't want to see what was pushing it. I don't remember how I got out. The next thing I knew, I was outside the building at dawn, my keys still jammed in the locked office door. My supervisor found me there, shaking and covered in cold sweat. When I told her what happened, all the color drained from her face. "You were alone last night?" she asked. "That office hasn't been used in years. Not since Laura Harris died at her desk back in 1998. She was working late to finish her dissertation when she had a brain aneurysm. They found her the next morning, slumped over her keyboard. They reassigned me to a different building, no questions asked. But sometimes, when I'm walking across campus late at night, I'll glance up at that office window. More often than not, I'll see the glow of a single monitor through the blinds. And if I stand there too long, I can hear it. The steady tap, tap, tap of someone still working, still trying to finish what they started. I never stay to listen for long, because sometimes the typing stops, and that's when I hear the chair roll back, like someone's just gotten up to leave. At this point, I was ready to quit the job, but would you have stayed? Comment hell no, or I'd investigate below. And don't forget to subscribe. You'll need the emotional support after the ending. It all started during my sophomore year at Brighton University. I was working part-time as an office assistant in the university's administrative building, a place most students avoided like the plague after dark. The building itself was old, older than the campus even, and its hallways were lined with faded wood paneling and flickering fluorescent lights. My job wasn't glamorous. It mostly involved filing papers and answering phones, but paid well enough to cover my rent. Most nights, I worked alone after everyone else had gone home. One night, around 9 p.m., I stayed late to finish organizing some files for the registrar's office. It wasn't unusual for me to be there alone, but something about that evening felt off. Maybe it was the silence. It wasn't just quiet. It was oppressive, like the air itself was holding its breath. Or maybe it was the way the shadows seemed to stretch longer than they should, creeping closer every time I glanced away. I tried to shake the feeling and keep working, but then I noticed something strange. One of the file cabinets near the back of the room was slightly open. I could have sworn I'd locked them all earlier that day. Thinking it was probably nothing, maybe another employee had forgotten to close it properly, I walked over to check. But when I opened the drawer, there was nothing inside except a single piece of paper lying face down. Curiosity got the better of me, so I picked up the paper. On it was written a short message in neat block letters. "You shouldn't have come here." My blood ran cold. Who would leave this? And why now? I looked around the room, half expecting someone to jump out and laugh at their cruel joke, but no one was there, just me and the oppressive silence. I crumpled the note and threw it in the trash, telling myself it was some prankster trying to scare me. But the word stuck in my head like a splinter. Over the next hour, I couldn't concentrate. Every sound, the hum of the AC, the creak of the chair, the distant rumble of thunder outside, felt amplified, like the building itself was alive and watching me. I decided to call a night early, hoping fresh air would clear my mind. As I gathered my things, I heard it, a soft knock coming from the hallway, 3 distinct taps, slow and deliberate. My first thought was that it was security doing rounds, but when I peeked out, the hallway was empty. Still, I called out anyway. "Hello?" No response, just that same suffocating silence. I locked the office door behind me and hurried toward the exit, clutching my bag tightly. I made it to the lobby, heart pounding, only to find the front doors wouldn't budge. They weren't locked. They just wouldn't move, no matter how hard I pulled. Panic set in. That's when I saw it. A figure standing motionless at the far end of the lobby, silhouetted against the stormy night sky outside. It didn't look human. Too tall, too thin, and its head, wrong somehow. Before I could scream, the lights went out completely. When the backup generator kicked in moments later, the The lobby was empty. The doors swung open easily, as if they'd never been stuck. I bolted out into the storm, without looking back. To this day, I avoid that building. Sometimes, though, late at night, I swear I hear those 3 knocks again, and see that same figure waiting in the corner of my dreams. If this story haunted you, wait until you hear the next one. Tap subscribe and turn on the notifications so you don't miss it. By the way, comment below, what's the creepiest thing you've ever seen at work, college, or school? It was the end of fall semester, and I had picked up an overnight shift at the IT help desk on campus. Finals week was brutal, and this was my way of catching up on some hours while also squeezing in some last-minute studying. I remember the exact date, December 14th. Everyone else had gone home for winter break, but I stayed behind for one last paycheck. The office was on the 3rd floor of the administration building, surrounded by nothing but darkened cubicles and the hum of machines left running overnight. It was around 1:20 a.m. when I first noticed something strange. I was logging a ticket into the system when one of the overhead lights flickered. Nothing too unusual. This building was old, but then I noticed that the flickering wasn't random. It happened in sequence, starting from the far end of the office and moving toward my cubicle. Like a wave. I froze, watching it happen again, the light stuttering row by row, getting closer each time. But when I stepped out of my chair and into the hall, everything was still, solid, as if nothing had changed. I went back to my desk, chalking it up to electrical quirks. But then, the computer locked me out. I hadn't touched anything, but suddenly the monitor blinked black. When it came back on, the login screen displayed a username I didn't recognize, admin_echo. I tried to reset the system, but the screen froze on an all-black background, and then a blinking white cursor. Nothing else. That's when I heard the typing, not from my keyboard, from the next cubicle over, but no one else was supposed to be here. I stood slowly, straining to hear if it was just in my head. The typing stopped as soon as I reached the edge of the cubicle. I hesitated, half wanting to walk away, half needing to see. I peeked around the corner, and there was nothing. No one. Just a dusty swivel chair spinning slightly on its own, as if someone had stood up seconds before I arrived. I placed my hand on the desk to steady myself, and that's when I saw it. Deep scratches on the surface. Not just random wear. Deliberate lines, carved in jagged rows, for parallel marks over and over again. I didn't even know I was shaking until I reached for my phone to call campus security. No signal, not even Wi-Fi. That's impossible in that building. I tried the landline. Dead tone. I was truly cut off. I sat back at my desk, hoping daylight would come fast, but it didn't. The clock on my screen was frozen at 1:27 a.m. I waited an hour. 2. Still 1:27. The sun never came. Then came the whispering. At first, I thought it was a wind, but it formed syllables, my name. Mark. So soft it sounded like it came from behind my own thoughts. I stood again, scanning the office for movement. Every computer monitor was on now, each one displaying a grainy black and white feed. Security cams? I leaned in. They were all pointed at me. Every angle, every screen, centered on my chair. At exactly 3:03 a.m., though I have no idea how I know the time, the power went out. No light, no sound, not even the hum of the heaters. Just void. I sat there in total silence until I felt something brush past me. Not air, not wind, a presence. I couldn't see it, but it was there, close, watching. I couldn't scream. I couldn't move. It was as if time held me hostage, like the building itself refused to let me go. Then nothing, I woke up on the floor with morning sunlight flooding the room. Everything was back to normal. My shift log showed no record of the events. No admin_echo. No camera feeds. No scratches. But I know what I saw. I know what I heard. And I'll never work alone at night again. Because something lives in that office when the world sleeps. And it watches those who stay too long.